right, we are live. Hello, Soulfire.
Hello, Soulfire. Happy Wednesday.
Welcome to Q&A, Ask a Medium Q&A. So if you all have questions for us today, please post them below. And I think, Molly, I'm just going to get started and discuss this weekend. I will not be doing live readings this Saturday. There will be a few Saturdays that I'm not doing live readings, not because I don't love you all, because I really do love you all, but I have a couple of events coming up that I'm doing. And if you all want to watch my event this Saturday, I will probably go live and discuss it, but I'm doing a singing competition this weekend as a fundraiser for a theater company that's local to us in Louisville, Pandora Productions. So there are a couple Saturday nights I won't be here. Kat will still be having live music, so please tune into that. Just know to check the calendar.
And we are working to find people to fill in, aren't we? To see if we can get some surprise live guests to do some readings.
Who wants to come on and do readings?
It's an opportunity for anybody that wants to test out their sea legs.
It really is. Well, I'm going to share this real quick on our pages. And Molly, I'm going to hand it over to you for a second.
Awesome. I'm going to actually share real quick as well. Since we're talking about future events, we got a couple of cool things coming up in the next few days. Tomorrow night, Christopher Paul Hancock will be live for his Thursday night Astro Lab. So he'll be with us starting at 8 tomorrow night. So definitely be sure and tune in for that. And he's always taking questions and doing readings. So be sure to jump on. I think the earlier you get on there, if he's doing readings during the astrology talk, the earlier you jump in there, the better. Let's see. Then we have got Sunday morning. We've got Saturday with Kat at 8 o'clock, as Jessica mentioned. Sunday morning, we've got Molly Younger doing her Sunday morning retreat at 9:30. And then Monday, we are hosting our part 2 of the conversation regarding white privilege with Janelle Apps Ramsey and myself. And then Tuesday, for those of you that are interested, we've got the Reading for Healing book club that will be having their second meeting. We'll be discussing white privilege, the book is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. So if there's anybody out there that is interested in hearing about that or sitting in on the conversation, it is open to people that have not read the book. You can sit in. Obviously, a very important topic. So the more the merrier. Definitely feel free to message me if you're interested in that. And I think that's it for announcements.
I love that. Well, where do we want to start, Molly? What questions do we want to start with?
Well, we've got a good one right off the bat.
I'm nervous.
That kind of points us in a direction to talk about a couple of things that I'm not sure we've really talked about in depth before. We had somebody send in a question. She didn't give me explicit permission to share her name, so we'll just refer to her as Nancy for right now. So Nancy had a question.
Hi, Nancy.
She has been... Can you hear me?
Hmm?
Oh, sorry. I thought we were having another technical thing. Sorry about that. So Nancy is leaning into her gifts. She's relatively new, exploring her gifts, and she's got a couple of she's having an experience that not a lot of mediums experience at a level where they understand what's going on, because it's a little tricky. She is actually getting channeled messages from people's higher selves. So we've not talked about that before. So it gives us an opportunity to talk about that. She's also very concerned. It's hitting her kind of hard because, she's in that process where she's newly leaning into her gifts, and she's building trust with spirit. And so she's had a situation where she had several what she felt were very distinct and clear messages from spirit regarding something that should be pretty clear cut. It was about her sister's gender reveal party. And she heard one thing very clearly several different times from spirit, and it turns out she was wrong. So she is having to deal with that place, and it's something that we all deal with at one time or another, where we're hearing something from spirit, but the way that we're understanding it is actually it doesn't line up when we try to validate. So how's that for a starter?
That's actually one. I hope Nancy's on here and she's listening, and because wow, what an incredible gift to talk to people's higher
she's
self.
Very gifted. Mm-hmm. She's very gifted.
I feel like my work is on a soul to soul level, but I feel like that is also very unique for what, like, her gift is very unique and very specific to that, and I love that. Like,
she is channeling spirit. She's channeling from spirit as well. Sorry.
Yeah. So I have to ask, with the gender reveal, did it have to do with the sex? Because I have an answer for that.
It did. It did.
Okay.
It was she was getting information, and I don't know which way it went, whether she was hearing it was a boy and it turns out it's a girl, or vice versa. Okay. But yeah, so that's what's.
So this, and I could tell you probably 3 women who I checked my pendulum, I checked in, and I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Here's the deal. Mm-hmm. When you're checking in on this anymore, because it is not so cut and dry anymore. Let's think of where our world is. We're in a world where you've got male, female, and transgender.
Yes.
So when I ask if this is a male or a female, sometimes I get the opposite answer too, because now you have to ask, is it a vagina or a penis?
Right.
That is my answer for that. It's not that you got it wrong, but we don't know until they're, until they get to teenage, what they're maybe, younger in age. They figure these things out real young in age. But I'm just saying, absolutely. I'm not convinced you got it wrong. I feel like you've picked up a gender for a reason. That is how it comes to me. And that's what's happened over this past year. And I've had people freak out. So they're like, wait, you told us it was going to be a boy and I'm having a girl. And they're like, I'm having to mourn. I'm like, my bad. So I want to speak to that,
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant response. With gender becoming more fluid in our culture, that information when it drops in, like you said, is not so cut and dry anymore. So, they may be biologically male when they're born, but they may identify as female. So, I mean, it really, time will only tell just how wrong she was. But there's also, I think there's so many different facets to, perhaps she was hearing, a desire, a really strong desire to have one versus the other from that person's higher self.
Sure.
It could be that, and there's going to be days, honestly, where we're off. And it may, it just depending on what's happening astrologically, what's happening with us physically and mentally, there's absolutely times when we are going to be off. But, we've talked so much about building trust with spirit. I think that is still paramount. And I think she's dealing with that, you and I have both experienced this, as we, and may still experience it to some level or another. I know I do occasionally when, we hit on something that seems so clear and it turns out to be wrong, how that kind of shakes us. And I know that you've done a significant amount of work and you are so strong in your, in what you are hearing and in your convictions. And I've seen so many other really incredible mediums as well. I've seen Janet Havoc on stage in front of 300 people tell a woman straight to her face, and in lovely terms, but tell a woman straight to her face who kept saying, no, that's wrong. She kept saying, no, this is what I am hearing, and it's for a reason. So just like Jess said, I think time will only tell. There's most likely a very good reason for why that was heard so clearly from the person's higher self. So yeah.
And like, I can say that I had today, people are like, nope, I don't know what it is. Nope. I was like, listen, this woman's shown up 3 times, so I know she's here. I know she's for you. I hope that it comes to you later, but I don't like to leave that standing. But they weren't connecting to it in that moment. Okay, so I can speak to that on that level. But at this point in my career as a psychic medium, as an intuitive, as a spiritual guide, like when people tell me no, I'm like, if you don't know what that is now, don't wait. You're gonna know what that means. And I often say, and I probably said it 1,000 times today, I'm not going to second guess what I got. Here's what I got for you. And my readings, they go into all kinds of areas of life, you know. So we might talk about sex. We might talk about, so many aspects, health, wealth, relationship, but also, yes, sex comes in. But let's come and have some fun with me. Let's talk sex. But, I've come to a point where spirit is not going to waste a minute giving you info that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
They're giving it to you. We may interpret it sometimes wrong, and that's okay. Our work isn't, I want it to be perfect. I want it to be specific. I want it to be detailed to where you can't deny it. And this channeling information is coming in and you have to interpret it and get it out. And sometimes you might interpret it the opposite. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Absolutely.
And it helps it grow.
Absolutely. It's a huge learning experience for each of us every time we have this kind of thing come up. But, spirit is, we're translating energy. So there's a lot that can be, mixed up in the translation. We all grow stronger the more that we practice with that. And of course, we've talked too about symbolism. When when we're building our symbolism dictionary, we may start to see images that we will interpret one way until we learn differently. For instance, I think I shared the example, I started to see spirit with really just unbelievably crystal blue eyes. They looked like they were lit up from the inside, and I would start to describe that to the person sitting in front of me. I'm seeing this person with, would describe them down to the T, and then I'd get to the eyes and I'd be like, they have the most amazing blue eyes. And the person would be like, no. And of course, they shut down at that point. But through trial and error over the course of time, it became very clear that what was happening is I was getting a new symbol. That even though they in life may not have had blue eyes, what that meant is that they had transitioned, that they had transcended or ascended up. And so that was what that blue, that crystal clear blue eyes. Yeah, it was amazing. It was such an incredible thing to understand. So,
something that I recommend for symbolism for people, if you're okay if I jump into that, is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Is to take a word a day, like apple, and write it down in a journey. And this is not my idea. This was given to me by Joe Scheel. And I work, he's one of my mentors. And he says, take a word like apple in a day and write down all the meanings apple has to you. So as a medium, apple might mean an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So it has to do with health. It could mean New York City. It could mean teacher. It could mean that's their favorite fruit. So you could go through and think about the worm coming out. I don't know. There's all kinds of things. And taking a word and writing it down in a note. Forbidden fruit. See? So, what you all have just seen is that Molly had different stuff that I didn't even think of, like forbidden fruit, of course. Of course. But we all have different meanings. So if you keep a journal of symbols that you're getting when you all are connecting with spirit and writing down what they've meant, like Molly's like, oh, now I know what this means. And you keep that spirit, that connection with spirit, that symbolism. So write it down since you know it. But the ones that you're still working through, like take a word and practice so that when spirit gives you apple, you can go through your list and be like, not literally in front of you, but in your mind, okay, apple, is it New York City? Is it teacher? Is it this? And you're able to get it. And it's going to come a lot quicker than you having to walk through a list. But sometimes if it doesn't come right away, you need to check back in and say, okay, tell me again, what's that mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So keeping a journal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really important process and a really important tool, I think, for a lot of mediums. Exploring that symbolism.
They're telling me to ask about the events. So let's talk about mediumship events that you and I have done. And I don't even know what the question is yet. It's downloading.
And while
But it
Jess
has
is
to do with
downloading that question, oh, sorry.
no go.
Got our leg, sorry. I was going to say, while Jess is downloading that question from Spirit, this is a Q&A. So if there's anybody out there with any questions that you would like to know about psychic work, mediumship, definitely feel free and throw your comments or throw your questions in the comments, and we will be focusing on those throughout the hour. Sorry, go ahead.
No, don't be sorry. That was perfect. So they're showing me being on stage together when we've done the large medium events, and they're saying, what stops you when you're on stage? Do you understand what that means? Do you feel stopped or feel stuck? But that's what they're showing me walking across the stage.
So for me personally, doing an event like that, and so this is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about platform mediumship. So it's a little bit different, obviously, for the obvious reasons that you're standing in front of an audience. It's going to be different than doing one-on-one or even small group readings. But platform mediumship is a type of mediumship that is practiced all over the world, and it's the way that it was taught to me is that there's kind of two distinct styles. So you're standing in front of this group of people, and there's kind of the American style, and then there's the British style. So the American style is, you stand up on stage, it's your turn to read, you make a connection, and then at that point you start, you start describing who you're connected to. I've got a man, he appears to be mid-40s, he's a heavy smoker, he's got blonde hair, you go into the whole thing, and then, you ask the audience, is there anybody that recognizes the spirit? And then hopefully hands will start going up. The British way, of course, is the exact opposite, where instead of starting with spirit and finding the person in the audience, you actually start with the person in the audience and then connect to their loved ones and bring a message through. And so I have always, traditionally, most of my readings have been in more of the American style, where I will get a link beforehand and then go to the audience. But the things that really kind of gum up the works for me, and I mean, and this would be true whether I was doing the British or the American style, is being so concerned about not getting that link, or not being able to connect the link to somebody in the audience, or I have on occasion started with somebody in the audience first, and of course that fear is there that you're going to bring somebody through, and just like you were saying a moment ago, they're like, yeah, I have no idea who that is. There's nothing that you're saying that makes any sense to me. So that's those are the things that have really made me nervous getting on stage. I will say honestly, though, Spirit has never let me down. So the more I've leaned in and trusted Spirit, actually it causes the energy, the vibration to rise, and even the better the messages are. So that's been my experience. How about you? What makes you nervous and
I mean, the same thing. Maybe I'm not going to pull somebody. Maybe they're not going to connect to it. But let me tell you, when I went, there are two distinct methods. I'm on the same page with you. Here's what's interesting, Molly. When I went to Arthur Findlay College in England, it is more of a learning to connect with spirit there. And with who I learned with, which was Mavis Patilla, who is from England somewhere, right? And a couple of other tutors there. And we connected with spirit, brought through spirit, and connected with the audience from there. However, when I was in Lilydale and I did readings at Inspiration Stump, I went direct. So how about that for a switch? Because, there are two distinct methods, but I learned them opposite. I learned them the other way, and that's fine. But I just was finding that very interesting. And I enjoyed being at Inspiration Stump, and I was like, okay, where am I going? And they directed me. So Spirit's not going to leave you hanging, but there is a fear. Well, what if I don't get anybody? What if I don't connect? What if nobody takes it? Well, when we're in a room of 300 people, trust me, somebody's going to take it, maybe 5, but it is a trust. Right. It is a fear that we're not going to connect. But honestly, Spirit's not gonna disappoint. Spirit's gonna give you what you need. They always give you
Absolutely.
everything you need,
They
and
always do.
they will give you more if you
Yeah.
need it. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing too, that spirit is, we have, in this human 3D experience of ours, we have expectations that spirit is going to communicate and think the way that we communicate and think. And that's been one of the most magical parts of this journey for me, is realizing it doesn't work that way. So there have been moments where I have, I've been able to make a link, I've put it out to the audience, and I've seen more than one hand go up. And of course, the process at that point is trying to figure out which one of those hands that the message belongs to. And so there's a process you go through of trying to narrow it down with additional details to see if somebody will put their hand down. And there's times that they don't. And I found on more than one occasion that messages can come through from multiple people that have never met before in their lives, that are still extraordinarily powerful and meaningful. It's kind of an example of piggybacking in a way, except we're piggybacking messages instead of piggybacking spirit. But it's amazing. So, even in those moments where I've been really, really afraid that things are going to go a little haywire, again, spirit has always showed up and saved the day.
And I feel like that's common, because I feel like when you're in a room of so many people, there are qualities that are going to be very similar. So these three spirits have come through together, and it may be for all of those, even though I may feel like it's directly connected to this woman over here in the third row, I can still speak to it on, I know I feel like I'm here, and please still listen, because this still may be a message for you all. So you can speak to that.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Do you have a distinct memory, a particular moment that comes to mind of doing a platform event and spirit, like you having to take a leap of faith that you weren't really sure how it's gonna work out in the moment, and spirit kind of caught you in a surprising or really memorable way?
I feel like I want to talk about the big group event we did in LaGrange, where I talked to the girl in the front row, and the entire time. Okay, good. Well, good. I'm glad we're linked
exactly
up.
what I was thinking about. That was amazing.
Thank you. I'm grateful for Spirit for making it amazing. So we were working with Janet Nahovic that night, and I had this guy that was in between a woman and this girl in the front row, and I saw him with curly hair. And so I start with her, and she was like, no, I don't know who that is. But as I got going and trusted Spirit, I was like, I'm sorry, but he is right there. Like, he is leaning into you. He's whispering in your ear. And as I connected more, here's what he gave me. He showed me himself leaning in, whispering to her with curly hair. And what she couldn't connect is he didn't have curly hair. She had been sick at some point, and her hair grew back curly. So that's where it came in. But after that, once we got that connection, it's like my whole body took over, and even my body shifted with Spirit, because I was blended so closely. And it was the most powerful connection. And I was so grateful for it. And she and I connect every now and again too, still. So we might see each other in different places on Facebook. And we did not know each other before that. And sweetest message. And
it was mind-blowing. I remember that one distinctly. I think a lot of people in the audience, myself included, were in tears on that one. That was really amazing.
And it was a leap of faith, this man with curly hair, and she's like, no. I was like,
Right. But you kept with it, and you kept working with it, and you were able to make the connection the more that you knew that was, coming through for her. I remember watching you work, and you kept right at it, and it turned out to be one of the most powerful messages of the night.
And I will say, like, sometimes, Spirit will always, like, what spirit gives you is right. I always say that. Spirit's giving me the right info. It just may be that I interpret it wrong, like the curly hair. Oh, it wasn't his, it was yours, but it didn't show up for me that way, you know? So Spirit's going to give it to you. It's just working. You have to, I feel like my dialogue with Spirit isn't always conscious. It's very much happening in another place, and then it comes through to me. So, and every now and again, I'm like, okay, can you give that to me a different way? Can you tell me what I know? You know, so you have to have this ongoing dialogue with Spirit. Okay, I got you. He's saying this and this and this. So that helps. If you get something wrong, then you go, okay, why did I interpret that wrong? Can you give it to me another way that I'll understand it?
Right. And that's a really good point. You know, Spirit can, you know, one of the things that I have struggled with in the past is Spirit coming through, speaking extraordinarily fast. And so, I mean, they're excited, and then of course it's just a high energy, and that information is just channeling on through. So, you know, having to ask them to, you know, to communicate a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Because of course, when you're hearing, when things are coming in that quickly, of course, it definitely increases the likelihood that you may, you know, misinterpret stuff or cross some wires. So, you know, going back to them, working with them,
Yeah.
just the two of you, that are working to deliver that message. It's kind of a partnership happening there. So yeah, like you said, I've never had an instance where they haven't been willing to work with me and figure out a way to get that information through.
And you do need to, you know, you do need to be clear-minded, like, and be in a good place. But before I touch base on that, I was laughing because that happened today. I was like, I was like, okay, hold on. They're giving me a lot at once. Okay, can we have one thing at a time? Like, I was, and you will, and if some of you have had readings with me, I'll know I'll be like, oh, okay, hold on. I'm getting a lot. So, and it is funny. Like, I love the humor Spirit brings. Like today we had an emotional piece. Like, I was like, am I going to start crying in this session? I'm so connected to the emotion, and I try to disconnect from that when it gets so strong so that I'm not the one grieving in the middle of a session, you know? But it's interesting how quickly you can connect and how clear they bring the information through. But sometimes it's fast. Sometimes I'll get different languages too. I'm like, did they speak another language? Because they're making me aware of it. So now, and know that even if Spirit does speak a different language, they can communicate with you anyway in your language.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I have found.
Absolutely. Quick pause here, because it looks like we've got quite a few people on, but I'm not seeing the chat that we normally have. Do you have comments?
I do. I want to say hello to Karen. I'm going to say hi to Gloria. I'm going to say hi to Vanessa. They all said hello. We do have several people watching, and we do have one question. Are you okay if I jump into that question?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Bart, hey Bart, he says, is there ever a fear of hearing more than you want to share, or the person may want to hear, and how do you handle that? I'll let you start.
I'm going to say that is absolutely a yes. And I think, I rely on Spirit to give me the things that need to be communicated. And you know, working not only with Spirit and my guides at the time, usually, you know, we can figure out a way to drop, you know, any heavier information in with you know, without dropping it in too heavily. But I think that, you know, especially, you know, that's always something that kind of sits in the back of my mind. And I think that, you know, the example that always comes to mind is Ellen's example. This is one of my favorite stories. And it's not so much a touchier subject, but it is a touchier message. So Ellen Jones, who is she's a dear friend of ours that we've done mediumship with for several years now, and she's also a very, very talented medium. She channels angels. She's actually done a an Ask a Medium session with us. You may have seen her, but she tells this story. She's told it several times about working with a mother and daughter, and she hears messages so clearly. And she's working with this mother and daughter, and she hears spirit use the word crack whore.
Oh, yeah,
and of course,
right.
She hears very clearly spirits say the word crack whore, and it stops her dead in her tracks. And she's like, this is a teenage girl and her mom. She's like, I don't want to say that. Can you give it to me another way? And spirit was very insistent. Crack whore. And of course, she went back again, and she's like, no, I'm going to need you to give that to me another way. And spirit was really insistent. And by the third time she heard crack whore, she finally relented. And she's like, I don't normally talk like this, but this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the word crack whore. And it made the entire reading. She trusted spirit to give her the information, even though it felt a little delicate and like she was treading on some shaky ground using that with a client. But it was the word crack whore that really helped it, because it was a funny term that the person in spirit used all the time. And so, it really helped. It raised the vibration in the room. It helped to bring, the reading to a whole new level. It helped the mother and daughter. It really brought it home for them that Ellen was absolutely in connection with their loved one. So it's a great example of one of those times where you can be walking in some, it feels like a little dangerous territory, and you trust spirit, and they never fail you.
I love that example. And a couple of things, it comes to me a little bit differently in the sense I want to talk to it on there being sensitive subjects. And Bart knows me. If sex is coming up, he knows I'm going to talk about it. So like sensitive subjects come up, like certain passings, like murders and suicides, like that's a lot of information. And even though the person may know this about their loved ones, I feel like I have to be gentle in my wording. So if something comes through that's like heavy or harsh, I'm like, okay, I do the same, like, can you give that to me or another way? Or I'll sit for a second and let them give that to me another way. So I'm not scared to share it. I just ask for the sensitive way to give it to them, because I'm bold and blunt anyway. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give you it. Here we go. This is what they said. And they're like, so spirit knows that I'm that way also.
Right. And I think, I do think, there's a couple of things that I kind of consider to be cardinal rules, in the realm of sensitive subjects. Like, if it's something that, is going to potentially blow their household apart, or if you're like, I'm hearing from spirit that your spouse is having an affair, things like that, telling them that they're going to die. These are just, the goal of a good reading is to give the information that spirit is presenting, but doing it in a way that is helpful and healing and uplifting to them. And so there's certain things that I don't really get those kinds of messages from spirit anyway. But even if I did hear spirit say she's gonna die in 6 weeks, that's not a message that I don't feel, at least not in that way, that I feel comfortable giving.
I agree. People worry I'm going to tell them that. People worry I'm going to tell them when they're going to die.
Yeah.
If somebody asks me about an affair, I'll tell them. But I also tell them, well, listen, this is, you need to check on this yourself. But I don't get those questions. I don't like to answer things that are going to tear households apart. But sometimes people ask questions, and it's, you really do have to be cautious, because you then have to approach that,
Yeah.
So it's very cautious.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
I think
I have been told when I would die. I have been told when I would die. I had a palm reader. By a palm reader in New Orleans. She was like, oh, you're going to live till you're 94. So put that on record, y'all. Play this at my funeral. 94.
Well, that's nice. That's a nice long life.
I almost said that's a fucking long life, so I'm gonna just say that. And thank you, Spirit, but also like I don't feel like it's okay because then you're either like going balls out and living your life for the next 6 weeks, or you're like, it's 6 weeks, I didn't die, and I just spent all my money, So it's just not okay. It changes that fate. I feel like.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there are. We're dealing with, in so many ways, even on the lighter side of a psychic or mediumship reading, we're dealing with subjects that can greatly impact how somebody walks in the world. And so, I think there is, there's obviously ethics involved there. There is a sense of responsibility there. We have to be careful so that the people that are coming to us for readings and for healing are we give them the information that they need in order to walk better in the world, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
More healed, perhaps.
Yes, that is exactly what Spirit gives me. They give me what that person needs for their highest and best good that moment, that day. And it may be expected that I was wanting to know about that. And it may be very unexpected. Like, I didn't think we were going there. And sometimes it does show them things about themselves. And I'm real gentle usually. Like, I'm hearing you're a little stubborn, and it may be more impactful than that or more severe, but I try to be real gentle because it is important for me. And I feel like it should be for any intuitive that when I leave your place, I feel uplifted. I may have grief. I may be sad. I may have emotion, but I should feel empowered and uplifted. That is my goal, at least.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point. I think, if we're looking for one, tool, one motto to take into a reading, it really is about what is in that person's highest and best good as far as giving them the information. So, coming across a piece of sensitive information, go back to Spirit and ask them directly, is it in their highest and best good for me to deliver this message? And if the answer is no, then move on. If it's yes and it still feels touchy, just like you said, asking them for a more delicate way to phrase it is a great place to start.
I'm being told to share this, so I'm going to share this. It's a piece of my story, so look how cautious I am at sharing this. You can only imagine that Spirit is as well, but when my mom comes through, she does not like to talk about her passing.
Yeah.
There are things that sometimes feel too tender for Spirit to mention. It may be tender to her. It might be tender to me. And I know it's tender to a lot of my family. So it was so tragic that she does not want to talk about it. And I work with students, like I say students, but colleagues and that are in my group and in my classes. And she does not like to talk about it. At all. So Spirit's going to give you what you need, or they're not going to give it to you. I often encourage people, like, ask them how they've passed. Ask them, how did they die? And my mom's like, nope, sorry about you. Not telling you. And that's okay, and on that note, like I just did a post in my Connecting with Spirit course talking about right or wrong. I don't know if the noise over here is real crazy. Is it bad?
No, okay. Not at all.
There's noise in the background. I'm like, scared me for a minute. So I just did a lesson this week in Connecting with Spirit, which is my mediumship course, talking about right or wrong. And for some reason I meant to talk about this too, because it's so easy to compare ourselves as intuitives. And it's so easy to compare the information that we're getting and the information coming through. And why does this person trust this person, or this person trust this person? Who do I see? What's right? What's wrong? And that goes into the information as well. And I just am like, the right or the wrong. There's no right or wrong way for an intuitive reading. Like, we all are going to get the information the way we receive it and how it comes out. this is the way Spirit wants me to give you this info. So this is the right way for me. And also, like, knowing that you're in an ethical boundary that we've talked about, that you are checking in, that the information is, bless you, that the information is for the highest and best good. So it's not about even if you are right or wrong, it's you trusting that intuition, bringing it through, and knowing that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 1,000%. Good question.
Yeah, that was a great question. And we have a couple other hellos. So I want to say hello to Sandra and hello to Jessica Smith. And if you all have other questions, go ahead and start asking those questions as we're getting towards the last 20 minutes here. Want to make sure we answer any questions you all have for us. We're open to whatever you want to ask.
Absolutely. Anything that you're curious about.
What comes up with you recently for mediumship? Like, how is that sitting in your power?
It's something that, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and mediumship, being a medium is part of who I am. It's always going to be part of who I am. I'm always going to be in communication with spirits, whether I want to be or not. And I always want to be. I love being connected and being in conversation with spirit. It's even in times where I've felt a little fearful or trepidatious. It's still something that it will always be with me, and I will always want to be part of my life. That being said, it is. I'm doing less mediumship work with clients, so I am. I'm focusing more on healing work for the moment, as far as my client offerings. But it's again, because that's part of who I am. It's not something that is ever not going to be part of the work that I do. Does that make sense? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, just where you're feeling it out. Yeah, absolutely. And I totally get that. A mediumship will always be a part of what I do. It's just not all that I do, but it comes into play often.
Yes.
I might set the intention to do a psychic reading with someone because that's what they're looking for. And if spirit wants to come in, spirit's going to come in, even in healing, because I do a lot of healing work as well. And I love the healing aspect of things. And I even do, like, in a past life regression, which sometimes is this life, and bringing in healing that way. And sometimes spirit steps in there as well. So it's really very powerful, the mediumship, but all of it it all ties together. Like, I think that goes with, and there's no right or wrong way. What are your tools? How are you bringing that forward? And Christopher just joined. Hey, Christopher.
Hello.
Say hello to what other questions do you have?
Well, one of the things that I was going to mention is, and will take me into a question, is that one of the things I'm also in kind of a transition place with my mediumship as well. So the way that I'm experiencing spirit, it's been shifting pretty consistently over the last couple of years. I'm getting less and less information clairvoyantly, and of course was getting a lot more information clairsentiently. But even how I'm experiencing that clairsentient piece is starting to shift. So I am in kind of this transitional learning phase. I've been having lots of experiences at night. And this is a new facet of mediumship it was a little unsettling when I first experienced it. But it's becoming pretty consistent, especially as I'm in that kind of in between place, like as I'm starting to fall asleep, or sometimes in the mornings I'm starting to wake up. I'm not in my bed anymore, and I'm not even necessarily in my time. So I'm having these time slip experiences where I will be in a different location, in a different time, almost kind of merging in with somebody else's energy. So, how have you noticed your gifts transition and change?
That's a great question. I think I've become more aware of my gifts in the sense of seeing energy in the physical is where I've started to notice that shift. I get a lot of clairvoyant, I get a lot of clairaudient, and a lot of clairsentient. Like, I've heard people say that's rare, but for me, I'm like, I get it all. Like, and I feel like most people do. We just tune into one a little bit more. So I feel that. But so what I have noticed is for a while, I didn't want to see spirit. I was like, do not show me you in person. I'm afraid I'm going to freak out. And now I'm open. I'm like, you can show me. Just don't scare me. Like, don't scare me. So I was walking through a house yesterday that wasn't mine. And I went downstairs and it was dim. I didn't turn on the lights, but I went downstairs. And as I went into the bathroom, it was like this wave of energy. I was like, oh, well, okay. So I'm seeing more energy in the physical is where mine has shifted. So I don't know where that's going or how that's going to change from here, but it's cool. I love it. And I can tune in to things around me in energy pretty easily and see them in my mind's eye, even if I don't see them physically, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a question. Can I jump into that?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is from Vanessa Blackburn. She says, how would you help someone interpret their dreams? Oh, man, I got an answer for this. I've been having vivid dreams that come back to my mind throughout the day. Well, let me just start with saying there's a date that we're having someone on to interpret dreams, like, or to talk about dream interpretation, Vanessa. So that is such a great time for you to tune in. I do not have all the answers, but I will jump in and say what I understand as I've studied dream interpretation is that typically a dream, and it depends, you know, are you doing lucid dreaming? Are you doing work in your dream? Or, you know, is there a scenario that's happened over the past few days that is causing that dream? And that's my understanding. Like, if I've had this major dream, what's been happening the past 2 to 3 days that would come up in that dream? So I would recommend you reflect on that closely to your dream. And I feel like what they're telling me lucid dreaming would be different and doing work in your dream would be different, but getting messages that way to interpret what's been going on the past few days is also another way. Does that make sense? Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
And I don't know what you know about that. And I'll just say Jessica Smith was like, I was just about to ask that too. So I can't wait for Jeff Carter to be here to talk about dream interpretation. I can't remember what date that is. I want to say August 12th, I believe, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely coming up relatively soon, and I'm really excited to hear his what he has to say about dream interpretation as well. And you know, there are different schools of thought regarding dream interpretation. There's definitely several great dream interpretation dictionaries that you can find out there on the market. If you go to Amazon or your local bookstore, you can easily find a dream interpretation dictionary. For me, this is one of those places too where my own personal symbolism is really important. Understanding, the things that I'm experiencing in the dream, what they mean specifically to me versus, perhaps a standard dream dictionary. And I would say too, I mean, it's really hard to, dream interpretation is such a wide and vast field to get information that might be useful to you on something other than just a kind of a general basis. I think, we need to know a little bit more, because there are different kinds of dreams that you can have based on, or at least in my personal experience, it's a very different feeling when I'm in communication with spirit through a dream. I've also had out-of-body experiences in a dream state versus just, crunching through, whatever is left, whatever is left from the day that's still sizzling through my synapses. Those kinds of dreams, they feel and look very, very different to me. So, I would need, more information other than to just generally answer that. But
I agree with that. Kennison asked, have you guys had much sleep interruption recently? Because she feels like her messages are coming at 3 to 4 a.m. when you say sleep interruption, I think up and down, like awake and asleep, which is something like I haven't been able to sleep straight for the past week or two, which is weird for me. I sleep good. But to getting your messages at 3 or 4 a.m. is very likely. And so much is going on astrologically that I feel like it's heightened the energy. And we just had that 7/7 Sirius gateway yesterday, something like that.
Yeah, and we've got all the planetary stuff happening, and we just had a lunar eclipse on top of. Didn't we have a solar eclipse last month? And the energy is definitely a little intense right now. So there's bunches of reasons.
And Vanessa said, yes, that's happened to me, out of body experience. I one of my first experiences, I didn't fully understand for a while because I really tuned out, was I woke up to my bed shaking.
Oh, wow.
And I felt like, and I don't know if that everybody's heard this story, maybe you have, but I felt like somebody had their hand in my chest, and it was like I was going, and my bed was shaking at the same time. And all I remember thinking was, please stop, please stop, please stop. And thinking, I'm going to wake up like Whoopi Goldberg. Somebody's going to be in my body and nobody's going to know.
Right.
I was so scared. And I couldn't go in my room for the longest, but that was an out of body. It was me slamming right back down into my body real harsh because that's how I do things. I just do it for force. So that was for, my only that I remember, so I may travel in my sleep and not remember plenty, which I bet we all do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's very possible. For me, I've had two distinct out of body experiences in kind of a dream state. The second one that I had was significantly less dramatic, and it was shortly after I went to college in Savannah. And I remember waking up in the median out in front of my dorm, running down the median barefoot, and feeling my feet hitting the ground and like sticks and twigs breaking into my feet. And it was so real. And the funny thing is, and the reason that I finally understood that I was having an out-of-body experience is that I don't see my feet in my dreams. In my normal day-to-day, I may be aware of them because they're part of whatever the storyline is in that particular dream, but I don't see my feet otherwise. And I was looking directly at my feet and feeling such contact, and I was so in this kind of just very lucid state that was absolutely an out-of-body experience. The first one that I had was when I was living in a house in New York that was built prior to World War I, and I was living with my family, and my father is a retired Marine Corps colonel. Marines, I think they at boot camp they get kind of the imagination part of them, is drilled out. But we were all, very, very aware that there was significant, spiritual, paranormal energy happening in that house. And I remember waking up sort of and being above my bed, and then my whole body basically tipping up and floating towards my bedroom door, and being very aware that it was like kind of being on a Segway. You lean forward, you go forward, kind of thing. But very aware of this kind of forward floating momentum, and I was heading towards the door, but I realized that I wasn't aimed on a direct trajectory with the door, that I was actually about to go through the wall. I scared myself so badly. I managed to kind of get a hold of the door frame and swing myself through the door and then down the stairs. And at that point, I started to panic a little bit, because I remember some horrible boy during high school telling me some nasty untruth about out-of-body experiences and getting your soul cord cut and being lost out in the ether forever. So yeah, which is just silliness. And of course I panicked and slammed right back in. So it was an interesting experience, but obviously very, very different than what my normal dream state is by far.
Yeah, I want to have one of those guides. Pink. I want to have one of those, guys. I'm gonna
I've
tell
been
them now.
wanting to have
So
more of those. Now that I'm not afraid anymore, but yeah.
we opened that door, y'all. Y'all did it. You did it.
Absolutely.
Darcy said, it's hard sometimes for me to interpret my dreams. Sometimes I get them a few days later. And she says, I used to have sleep paralysis in my darker years where I'd feel like I'm going down in my bed and cannot move at all, but move my eyes. It used to be very scary. I've had that. I've had sleep paralysis. Have you?
I have had sleep paralysis, and this actually might be something that we could focus a little time on in another segment, because
I would love that.
Been coming around. I've been seeing it pop up more and more, and I've had experiences that I would label as sleep paralysis, but they're a little bit different than what I'm hearing from other folks, where they're having actual paranormal encounters during their sleep paralysis.
Okay.
So, and yeah, I'm very curious to talk about that more in depth. But yeah, I've had the not being able to move and such.
Well, let's set up a session to talk about sleep. I mean, more than dreams, but sleep paralysis. And I know we're in our last couple of minutes here, so I love the idea of spending more time on that another time. But is there anything else that you feel you'd like to share tonight, Molly?
I can't think of anything nothing is screaming at me. Yeah, I think everything feels pretty complete on this end. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Anything else they want to drop in the hopper real quick?
We'll give that a minute.
And then
yeah. And you all already know what's going on this week. No, I actually feel complete. I feel settled. I feel like I just want to whisper to y'all that Molly and I got something big in the works for you. That's all I want to say.
Yes, we do.
So we've had some exciting things coming. We've got new stuff coming. So I felt called to whisper that. Okay, one more question. As well as how your body would feel after having a dream like that. My goodness, with those dreams, I'd wake up sore and felt like I was beat up. Yes. So more comments on sleep. We're going to touch base on that. Darcy, thank you for sharing that. And happy birthday, Darcy. Vanessa, you're welcome. You're very welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And we are going to see you next week. I think Thomas Freeze is next week. Oh, you all are in for such a treat.
Is it Lynn? I thought Lynn was next week.
I don't know. Lynn is next week. Oh, man, I've jumped to the end of July already. Ooh, Lynn Cottrell. Yeah,
we've got so many great people coming up.
Yeah, yes. And feel free, if some of you want to go live or want to interview with us for your skill set, you want to let us know. We love interviewing you all. So please let us know. Reach out to myself or Molly. And Darcy, you got another happy birthday message on there too. So thank you all.
So next week, Lynn Cottrell. And we're talking about what are we talking about with Lynn next week?
We're talking about spirit arts. You guys, Lynn, I studied under Lynn at Arthur Findlay College in England. And this woman goes into a trance state and draws with both hands with her eyes closed and comes out with this miraculous. In fact, let me see. I don't know that my camera will turn around, but let's go for a little walk. I'll show you a piece that she did. Maybe, I don't know if you can see it very well, but you see him? See, I'm having trouble with my camera. See him a little.
Yeah, I think the light behind you is making it a little difficult.
Yeah, that's him. You can see him a little bit. Right? Yeah, so she does amazing work. And I tell you, when I watched her do trance and did art with her eyes closed, she had this guide that was an Indian that was half old, half young. And it was impressive for her to do that with her eyes closed. So she's going to be able to talk to us about spirit art. And when I studied with her, we did all kinds of different art. It wasn't just one. It was like paint, handprints, like the little whirly paint thingies. Like we had so much fun. So, and then we did trance work too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited for her.
Me too. All right. We'll see you all next week. We'll see you sooner.
All right.
But we'll see you for sure next
Thanks,
week.
guys. We'll see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye.